He wants to be a basketball player, and he wants to be a great basketball player, and he works at it.
Ovington J. Anthony O.J. Mayo, born November 5th, 1987. O.J. Mayo was supposed to be next. In the years after LeBron James changed how America viewed high school basketball prodigies, O.J. Mayo became one of the next young stars expected to follow that path. He wasn't just hyped as a great high school player, he was on magazine covers, national television, and internet mixtapes before most players his age ever got a driver's license. The comparisons were massive: Kobe Bryant, Tracy McGrady, even Michael Jordan at times. Many believed his scoring ability was too polished to fail, and honestly, when he entered the NBA, it looked like the hype might have been real. Mayo averaged nearly 19 points per game as a rookie, looked calm in big moments, and carried himself like a veteran scorer from day one. But strangely, that rookie season ended up feeling like the peak instead of the beginning. While other stars kept evolving physically, athletically, and mentally, Mayo slowly stayed the same player while the league moved forward around him. By age 28, he was completely out of the NBA after violating the league's anti-drug program. From next superstar to overseas basketball overnight. And looking back now, these are the main reasons why O.J. Mayo's growth was stunted. What happened? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it. Like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know who I should do next. O.J. Mayo was a 6'4" shooting guard from Huntington, West Virginia, though his basketball fame actually started years earlier in Kentucky. Long before social media turned high school players into celebrities every week, Mayo was already one of the most talked about young athletes in America. He reportedly played varsity basketball as a 7th grader and quickly built a reputation as a polished scorer with advanced footwork, confidence, and shot-making ability far beyond his age. By the time he reached high school nationally, he was already being labeled the next great basketball prodigy. He transferred to Huntington High School, where the hype exploded even further. National media followed him everywhere. His games were packed, and he became one of the faces of the early YouTube mixtape era, alongside names like LeBron James and Sebastian Telfair before him. He won multiple state championships, earned McDonald's All-American honors, and finished as one of the top-ranked players in the 07 class. What made Mayo stand out wasn't overwhelming athleticism, but how polished and skilled he already looked as a teenager. Many believed he was the safest future superstar in basketball. After one season at USC averaging over 20 points per game, Mayo declared for the 08 NBA draft and was selected 3rd overall by the Minnesota Timberwolves before immediately being traded to the Memphis Grizzlies in the Kevin Love deal. Entering the NBA, expectations were enormous. The league believed O.J. Mayo was going to become one of basketball's next franchise scorers. Stunt number 1, he peaked too early. The strange thing about O.J. Mayo's career is that when he first entered the NBA, it honestly looked like he was ahead of schedule. Most young guards spend their first few seasons trying to figure out how to score consistently against NBA defenders, but Mayo already looked comfortable from day one. He averaged 18.5 points as a rookie, hit difficult shots, showed advanced footwork, and carried himself with the confidence of a veteran player. At only 21 years old, people assumed this was just the beginning. The problem was, it really wasn't. Looking back now, the rookie version of O.J. Mayo was dangerously close to the finished product. His game had been built for domination at the high school level, where his skills and strength separated him from everyone else. He could create tough jumpers, score from all levels, and bully smaller defenders despite not being an elite athlete. But once he reached the NBA, the advantages that made him special started shrinking fast. Suddenly, everybody was athletic, everybody was skilled, everybody was strong, and unlike the superstars he was compared to, Mayo didn't have elite physical tools to fall back on. At 6'4", he was undersized for the scoring wing role he wanted to play. He wasn't explosive like Dwayne Wade, long and physical like Kobe Bryant, or a dominant playmaker like James Harden eventually became. Mayo's entire game revolved around difficult shot making, but NBA defenses eventually adjusted. Once defenders realized he lacked elite bursts off the dribble and wasn't a major threat attacking the rim, his scoring became much harder to sustain efficiency over an 82-game season. What hurt even more was that Mayo didn't really evolve. Usually, great young players add layers to their game over time. They become better playmakers, defenders, leaders, or more efficient scorers. But while the league around him kept changing, Mayo largely stayed the same player he had been at 18 years old. In some ways, all the hype may have actually worked against him because he entered the NBA already believing he was a finished superstar instead of a developing young player. And that's what makes OJ Mayo's story so different from most busts. He wasn't some player who completely lacked talent or couldn't play in the NBA. He clearly could. The problem was that the version people saw at 17 years old ended up being much closer to his ceiling than anybody wanted to admit. Stunt number 2, scoring was the only thing he brought. One of the biggest problems with OJ Mayo's game was that once his scoring stopped looking special, there really wasn't much left to lean on. That sounds harsh considering how talented he was offensively, but it became more obvious as his career continued. Mayo entered the league during an era where scoring guards were expected to eventually become complete franchise players. The stars he were compared to weren't just bucket getters. Kobe Bryant defended at a high level, Tracy McGrady could create offense for entire teams, and Dwayne Wade attacked the rim relentlessly and pressured defenses every possession. Mayo never truly developed those other dimensions to his game. Early on, people ignored those flaws because the scoring looked smooth enough to believe stardom was coming anyway. He had advanced footwork, a polished pull-up jumper, and confidence that made difficult shots look routine. But over time, the league started realizing something important. OJ Mayo's scoring style actually required him to work extremely hard for points. Most of his offense came from contested jumpers and difficult shot creation. That's a dangerous way to survive in the NBA unless you're truly elite at it. As younger and more athletic guards entered the league, Mayo slowly started to look easier to replace. Players were becoming bigger, faster, and more versatile while the NBA itself was shifting toward efficiency, spacing, and playmaking. Mayo wasn't a true point guard who could run an offense full-time, but he also lacked the size teams wanted from scoring wings. Defensively as well, he never became the type of player coaches trusted to anchor their perimeter. So when the shots weren't falling, his impact on games became harder to justify. The scary part is that his decline happened quietly. There wasn't one massive injury or dramatic collapse at first. Instead, the league slowly stopped viewing him as a future star and started viewing him as simply another scorer. His role decreased, his minutes fluctuated, and eventually he bounced from Memphis to Dallas to Milwaukee, searching for consistency. Even when he had productive stretches, the excitement around him never fully returned because people kept waiting on the next level that never came. By his mid-20s, OJ Mayo had gone from being one of basketball's most famous young prodigies to a player fighting to prove he still belonged long-term. And for someone projected as a franchise-changing superstar, that drop happened much faster than anyone expected. Stunt number 3, the NBA finally gave up on him. Even after OJ Mayo stopped looking like a future superstar, most people still believe he would have a long NBA career. Players with his scoring ability usually stick around somewhere in the league for years, especially guards who could create offense and shoot. That's why the ending of Mayo's NBA run felt so shocking. He didn't slowly fade into retirement after a 15-year career. He was suddenly just gone. And once the NBA finally gave up on him, his reputation completely changed overnight. By the middle of the 2010s, Mayo was already struggling to regain momentum. His stint in Dallas showed flashes offensively, but inconsistency continued following him from team to team. In Milwaukee, he still had moments where the talent jumped off the screen, yet the excitement around him was nowhere close to what it once was. Instead of discussing him as a future all-star, conversations had shifted toward unrealized potential and disappointment. The league no longer viewed him as a player worth building around. He had become another guard trying to survive in a younger, faster NBA. Then came the moment that effectively ended everything. In 2016, Mayo was dismissed from the NBA for violating the league's anti-drug program. Reports later revealed he had tested positive for hard drugs, leading to a 2-year ban from the league. From somebody once viewed as one of basketball's safest future stars, the news felt surreal. OJ Mayo had gone from national prodigy to completely out of the NBA before turning 30 years old. What made the downfall even stranger was that he still looked talented enough to play professionally somewhere. After leaving the NBA, he continued his career overseas, trying to rebuild interest around his name. Every now and then, highlights would surface online, reminding people how naturally gifted he still was offensively. But by that point, the image of OJ Mayo had already changed permanently. He he was no longer viewed as the next Kobe Bryant or the future of basketball. He became another cautionary example of how dangerous early hype can become when expectations grow larger than the player himself. And honestly, that's probably the saddest part of OJ Mayo's story. Most NBA players would celebrate an 8-year career and millions earned. But when people spend years calling you the next great superstar before adulthood even begins, simply being solid eventually starts looking like a failure. All in all, OJ Mayo's basketball story feels less like a complete collapse and more like a player who was introduced to the world too early and judged against impossible expectations from that point forward. Before he even reached the NBA, people had already decided he was supposed to become one of the faces of basketball. So when his career turned out to be good instead of legendary, the disappointment around him became much louder than the actual accomplishments. The reality is, Mayo still played 8 seasons in the NBA, scored over 7,000 career points, earned millions, and remained talented enough to continue playing professionally long after leaving the league. Following his NBA dismissal, he rebuilt parts of his career overseas in countries like China, and later continued playing pro in places like Puerto Rico. In recent years, Mayo has stayed mostly out of the spotlight compared to the level of fame he once carried as a teenager. Today, OJ Mayo's story stands as one of basketball's biggest examples of how dangerous early superstar expectations can become. Because in the end, the version of OJ Mayo people imagined at 17 years old may have been impossible for anybody to actually live up to. Salute, much respect, but for these reasons, his growth was stunted. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.